This time of year we get a lot of questions coming in. Is it dry enough to work? Can I work the field? And when will it be, a situation where I'll put in too much compaction to work with? And the reason for a lot of questions is I go out in the field in the summertime and I'm evaluating corn roots and looking below ground, even in the soybean fields, we run into compaction. About 80% of that compaction happens here in the first pass. I know everybody's excited. We want to get going, and this field is too rough. We've got too many ridges and valleys to put our herbicide on. So we want to level this thing down so we get good control and mixture of our herbicides itself. And on top, this does look dry. Matter of fact, it flows through my hand. And a situation we get out here, we're going to kick up some dust, and we start kicking up dust, it must be dry itself. Well, whether it's dry enough or not kind of depends on the equipment that you're using. And for the most part, when we're trying to level this, a lot of this is going to be a disc, a soil finisher, or field cultivator, what we consider horizontal tillage in itself. This field is not dry enough yet for horizontal tillage. And one of the ways you tell is you're going to need to dig down below ground to just below the depth that you're going to run this tillage and analyze the soil down there. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're going to dig on down to the depth, and we're going to have to get down here about 4 or 5 inches in this field to get ourselves deep enough to level this field up. So you want to go down there at about the 4 or the 5 inch level and check the soil out down there. And then put it in your hand and see if you can ball it up. Of course, this is quick to ball up, and I like to then work with a little bit and then run it between your thumb and your forefinger and see if it'll ribbon. And if it'll ribbon more than a ½ inch over that finger, we've got a problem. This is going to cause compaction if you hit this with horizontal tillage. So if this field gets worked today or tomorrow in this kind of shape, we're going to have a horizontal layer. It's going to stop roots, and we're going to live with it for the whole season itself. So yes, while it's dry on top, going to kick up some dust, down here it's not. Now, believe it or not, this is dry enough to put vertical tillage on. We can bring vertical tillage through here and level this field up without causing a horizontal layer. But what will happen, or what's the most important there, is your wheel tracks. So what kind of damage is the wheel track of the tractor going to do in this situation? So out here, this is probably still too wet for a wheel track tractor with duals. May not be for something with tracks on it itself. But you'd go out behind that tillage pass, you dig in the wheel tracks and see how tight and firm that soil is. If you struggle to take your wheel tracks out with a putty knife, even vertical till, you're going to have wheel track compaction. Now again, that's not the whole field. You don't have a smear layer across the whole thing, but it's a situation where those wheel tracks are going to show up, especially if you put them at an angle, they're going to show up throughout the whole season as well and give us some unevenness in pollination and growth itself. We're here in the same field. We have a strip that wasn't tilled last fall, and it's actually a little bit different, meaning the conditions at the surface are actually fit if we were going to plant it. We'll go over and take a look at that. So here we are in the same field, but this portion for plot work is set up for no-till. And if I was coming in here to no-till plant this, believe it or not, this is in better shape than what we just looked at. I'm dry enough up here on top, the soil flows through my fingers itself, and I can plant into this. I can tuck seed into some nice moisture down here and get off to a good start. Here we talk about teaching the planter to dance. We don't want to push this dry soil out of the way and force ourselves down into the wet, muckier stuff because it gets wetter as we go down. We want to keep that planter up on top. All we want to do is move the residue out of the way. So once we move the residue out of the way, we still got a nice surface to plant into, and we want to leave this soil on top. This soil here that won't ribbon up in your hand. We're going to keep our down pressure light, only enough to keep this planter in the ground. We're going to keep our row cleaners on the less aggressive stage, so they're just moving residue and not soil itself. But here we are. This would actually plant today in no-till conditions, where that I have to level it. The other part of this field, I have to level it before I can put my herbicide on and before I can get in there and plant. And it's not dry enough for that. So the wind and the temperatures we've had the last 3 days put this in good shape.